This is the story, the script of the plan of a film of a map for a book on East London. The story begins, as so many do, in the middle somewhere, in the middle of life, catching up with your past, and casting round for some sort of guide, a plan to make sense of it all, a direction, a map. My name is John Wallett. I'm a graphic designer. My background was originally working in art and community arts and education in East London, where I met a lot of people and got very interested in community art, community politics, local history, and lived and worked in East London for many years before escaping the London gravity and moving out to Colchester area. And it was in an open studio show in Wivenhoe in Colchester that I bumped into Phil Cohen, who had seen some work I'd done on maps of the East End and map-related projects and other bits of design, and had just was in the last stages of completing his one of his recently released books on East London and the impact that the Olympics had had. And he was very interested to see if I would like to work on doing a double-page spread illustrated map that would complement the book. I think the thing that came out right at the beginning was that the scope of the map was quite broad, and there was always going to be more in the map than could possibly fit in. For me, I suppose many of those would be places which had a relevance either to me or in the context that I'd experienced East End in the 80s and 90s. So, for instance, the ABC cinema, which was socially interesting, it was the cinema on the north side of Mile End Road where The Sparrows Can't Sing was first premiered in the 60s, a film that gave Barbara Windsor a very important role, almost playing herself as a sort of chirpy young East End woman. Groundbreaking film, very interesting film, directed by Joan Littlewood. And then that was a cinema that, like many cinemas, fell into decline and was sat as an empty shell for many years. We were very happy that it had a sort of new lease of life in the 90s. It was reopened as part of a little local East End film festival. They put on re-showed Sparrows Can't Sing and got Barbara Windsor along to the event, which was a big deal for people who lived in the area because she'd obviously come back to fame as a star of screen and TV. And of the famous East End characters that are depicted in the map on the cigarette cards, there, she's actually the only one that I'd can never say hand on heart I'd actually been able to meet. The cigarette cards on the map are just one aspect of it, but the idea with them was to create a little East End Hall of Fame, cover some of the figures, both recent and maybe a bit more historical, who'd been known as kind of important figures in the history of the area. And when we started, we had to, originally the idea was we would have them across the top or down the side of the map as a little frieze, either of photographs or silhouettes. I think probably prompted by having Charlie Chaplin, but when it comes down to it, of course, most people's silhouettes don't look very distinctive and you can't always tell who they are. In the end, I tried doing them like cigarette cards or tea cards because it seemed a way of bringing them all together from different historical periods and showing them each one in a little frame, making them all a sort of purpley sepia colour so that they all looked like they could be from the same series. The only one that actually was from a cigarette card was Kid Berg, who the Jewish East End boxer. There was a very important thing with young Jewish guys going into sport, particularly in boxing. It was a fairly tough life, but it was a way of changing your circumstances, a way of maybe breaking out of some of the whole traditions of family and the sorts of industry and work that a lot of the young Jewish guys had been involved in the East End. The geographical spread of the book and the project was really covered the area from the edge of the city and the tower right out to sort of Rainham Marshes, which is a very big geographical area. And if you cover the whole area consistently, then of course all your landmarks become very tiny. So we sort of cheated a bit and focused on the sort of traditional notion of the East End, the bit around Tower Hamlets and Newham, and then kind of cheated a bit by folding the map so that the bits that went out further where the newer docks were and out to Rainham and Dagenham kind of got referred to. You could see them visually, but they were the bit of the map that was kind of folded in from the edge. And it seemed to sort of work with the style of the map, which was deliberately a bit eclectic and covered some historical eras. There's some symbols on the map. They started out as little illustrations, landmarks, important historical disaster spots, sites of what were basically political conflicts. And they just got rendered down and down until they were more or less like a little symbol with a colour and a shape, somewhat at Phil's insistence, and in keeping with his rather cheeky title of Lights On for the Territory, which is a reference to Iain Sinclair's book Lights Out for the Territory, rather wonderful book about London. We had a Iain Sinclair was here symbol, which was an open book with an ink blot on it. Very much a cheeky homage to Iain Sinclair. When I started doing the map, I started with a base map which had all the main roads, all the sort of secondary roads and lots of landmark streets. And then on top of that put markers for some of the key historical landmarks, some of the areas like Bow, Hackney, Wick and Stratford, which we had little sort of factoid cards. And the whole thing got so busy that we had to just kind of wipe all the base map out again and just put in a few really key roads and location points so people could see where things were. So in a sense it went from being a proper map where there's a kind of an even-handed coverage and anyone can use it to get from anywhere to anywhere. It went to telling a story or being a kind of a list, if you like, a two-dimensional list of key events, strategic points, little in-jokes and links between some of the sites that were mentioned in the book. So it became a bit more partisan, really. It started to become more pointed, more biased, have more opinion about it. Again, I thought that was totally appropriate because the whole history of the East End is about, lots of people's experience of place and making the place their own and having their own histories and their own territory and then being replaced and moving on and other groups coming in. So it was very much part of the spirit of, how I would see a historical depiction of East London.
For your safety and comfort, turn left after 200 metres. The road rages luminously. Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened. Carry straight on till you get to where the rioters broke through the police cordon and set fire to the tobacconists. For your safety and comfort, this car operates a no smoking policy. Your current position is 51.543 degrees north. When you reach the roundabout, take the last exit to Brooklyn. After 400 metres, change gear and move into the slow lane. On your left, you will see the ruins of the post-Fordist factory. You are now entering a danger zone. For your safety and comfort, please be careful when approaching strangers. After 300 metres, turn right at the park by your old school where you used to bunk off. You will notice the windows are broken and the walls are covered with graffiti. Proceed with caution. Your current position cannot be detected. Danger. For your own safety, have an onward journey. Have a good day and thank you for travelling Pronto Prod, the #1 system for sat-navies around the world.